Greetings, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Not Funny Guys Presents Andor Season 1 Rewatch. And we are at the end of the third arc, but in a lot of ways, these last three episodes kind of almost make their own arc. You know, you could say that the end of, No Way Out? Nobody's Listening, kind of did wrap up the third arc, even though we did not leave yet in Arcana 5. But One Way Out is a real turning point. And we're going to come back to a little bit of a discussion about Campbell's monomyth, the hero's journey, a little bit at the end. But let's talk about this. So episode 10, One Way Out, originally aired on November 9th, 2022, written by Bo William and directed by Toby Haynes. The escape, finally. We're literally going to pick up where we left off. So by breaking a water pipe and flooding the work floor, Cassian is able to disable the security system, allowing the crew to overpower the few guards and escape. Kino uses the prison's intercom system and encourages other floors to escape. The rebellion sweeps through the entire prison. Despite his role in the escape, at the very end, Kino reveals that he can't swim and he may or may not stay behind. We don't know. I would love to find out more. Personally, I'd love to know more about what happened to Kino, because I think this man is an inspiring leader, and we'll talk about that later. Of course, Cassian swims with some of the other escapees and reaches land. Meanwhile, back on Coruscant, Mon Mothma meets with Davos Skulden, shady businessman who offers to help her with her finance, her projects, but Mon refuses after Davos basically suggests that they arrange a meeting between her daughter and his son, basically setting up the idea of what Shenjalan culture holds as important about arranged marriages. She's not open to it yet. ISB supervisor Lonnie Jung, secretly we find out is a rebel informant and goes to meet with Lucen, who he updates him on ISB activities. The two men reflect on how they are both sort of trapped in their roles. And there is a stopover on Ferrix as well, involving the fact that Marva is kind of dying and not taking her medicine. Let's actually start on Arcana 5, even though this is also where we kind of quote-unquote end the episode, and then we'll go to Coruscant. Like I said, there's a brief stopover on Ferrix, but I think that's mainly sort of to set up the fact that Marva's dying. So we'll save that one because that'll be more relevant in the next episode. But in Arcana 5, we are literally exactly where we were at the end of the last episode. Nobody's Listening. And what we have here is Kino is kind of in that state of being broken. He's literally lost hope, and Cassian's trying to desperately pull him out of this whole thing. And in a weird way, Kino sort of serves as both mentor and ally in a weird way for Cassian, and vice versa. It's like they share these things. They talk about how the floor being fried, and Cassian sees it as a symbol that the guards are scared, because he says power doesn't panic. All right. So Kino thinks it's, fear that, he thinks it's power. Cassian is right, though. They're scared. But Kino is still in kind of crisis. He's not yet fully come out. He's not put himself back together. He's in this sort of nebulous state of chaos. You can sort of see it. And Andy Serkis does such an amazing job with the face work. You see it on his face. His facial features just communicate all this chaos that's internal. I love it. He's a brilliant actor. But they now realize that tomorrow is their chance to go, because they'll be bringing a new man to replace Ulof. This is their chance. They need to go during a transfer. So Cassian goes back. They tell the barracks what's happened. Talk about the return of the prisoner to the thing. They're frying the floor, what the doctor told them. And Kino finally kind of pulls himself together and sort of says, no one's getting out. He has this moment of revelation. He's sort of asserting himself as leader, which is what Cassian wanted him to do. So he's pulling himself together. So skip ahead, it's D-Day. They wake up. Kino addresses the men, rallies them. Their kind of common now phrase is only one way out. And he talks about assuming he's already dead and go from there. When they're on their shift, Cassian goes to the bathroom to finish working on the pipe. Prisoners start secretly kind of gathering things to act as weapons. The new prisoner arrives. The guards are again behind. They're like, it's clear that they're understaffed. It's the exact same thing that Cassian saw when he first arrived. Cassian manages to break the pipe, and the water starts flooding out onto the floor. And this leaking pipe actually causes, when they try to zap the floor, it actually causes everything to get shorted out. It's pretty cool. Two of the guys at his table begin to pretend to fight this, distract the guards. They manage to jam the lift. And this is when everything starts breaking out. They start pelting the guards. Cassian climbs up. They try to spark the floor, but it basically shorts out. Cassian manages to grab one of the blasters off one of the guards, kills them, and then when this happens, the men really finally have the advantage to go, because in the meantime there were two guards on up on the rampart aiming down at them, but this basically gives them free reign. Like I said, the floor sparked out, and then the water starts dripping down to other floors, starting to alert other men that something's going on. And guards are basically arming themselves, going to investigate. The men begin on free other floors as they move around. They keep chanting the one way out as their rally cry. Kino and Cassian make it up to the main control room on 8, and they take control of it. They stop the order, which was aimed at frying all of floor 5. Kino shoots one of the men to make a point, and they finally get the main guy in charge to kill the hydro power, which basically will prevent the facility from being useful for months. And after this is done, the power gets cut off, the emergency cuts back in, and now everyone knows something's going on. Cassian tells Kino to get on the microphone and give a speech, and he basically gives a very inspiring speech, and this builds into this wonderful musical score underneath this as they begin going out. You know, the guards are cowering as the men are escaping. There's more of them. There is one way out, one way out. Again, they're chanting this. They have to jump in the water. This is where the whole thing with Kino says he can't swim. Cassie and Melchi end up falling in, and then they escape. And that's like the last thing we see in the episode. However, that's not the last thing that's going on. But Kino's speech is, like I said, super inspiring speech. And like I said, the music behind it is so good. So good. I can't remember, I'll find it, but I can't remember who did the soundtrack for this, but I love the music in this show. I will come back around to it because when we get to the very end, again, another great example. But let's go over to Coruscant now, okay? So on Coruscant, we have Lonnie and Deidre Miro, and they're reporting to Partagaz about the dead pilot scheme and how to proceed. Meanwhile, Davos Skulden has that meeting with Tay and Mon Mothma, talk about the old ways discussion, wants to hear Mon Mothma. He wants her to say it, that she needs him. He really wants that clarity and recognition that his low ways of sort of doing business, he wants her to validate him. And it's a real kicking her in the nuts and the pride. I know she doesn't have nuts, but she's really having to think about sacrifices now, because when he puts forth that proposition that she initially rejects about their children getting married, she's not okay with it. This is another example of sacrificing things is becoming real, closing in on her. Things are getting real. Meanwhile, Luthen and Clea are talking about a meeting that has been requested by somebody he hasn't seen in a year. We don't have the revelation yet, but we come to find out that this is Lonnie, our friendly, red-headed, ginger ISB agent. Goes to the level of Coruscant to meet with Luthen. He has a daughter now, and he is the mole in the ISB, and Luthen knows he has a daughter. He comes to warn Luthen about the fact that Deidre Miro, referring to him as Access, they're looking into Cassian too. Luthen's not bothered. He plays coy about Adani. No one seems to want to take credit for that. Or at least they just keep it compartmentalized. Lonnie reveals that they pilot for Anton Krieger and he's compromised. Luthen decides to let Anton go. 50 men he's willing to sacrifice, and tells Lonnie he's more important. And then the real reason for the meeting comes out, that Lonnie wants out. He wants Luthen to let him go. He's been working 6 years alone, up his ranks in ISB. He's planning on telling me he has health issues so he can leave and retire. Apparently becoming a parent has very much changed him, which I agree with. It does change you. Luthen is not going to let him go. Gives him this wonderfully, oh gosh, talk about speeches in this episode. We have really two great ones, but terrifyingly amazing speech to Lonnie when Lonnie asks him, what do you sacrifice? And things like calm, he starts listing things: calm, kindness, kinship, love. Talks about sharing his dreams with ghosts. And then he admits, I'm damned for what I do. He knows that this will not end well. The end of his path is not going to be one of glory. So that takes us sort of to the end of the episode. But I want to return to this idea of the hero's journey, because last time we talked about Cassian kind of crossing the threshold. And so now he's in the realm of the initiation. And if you consider the initiation, making new allies, enemies, road to trials, we have what happened to Maldani, and now what's happened to him on Narkina 5. I would consider the idea of his ordeal is the escape from Narkina 5. This whole escape is going to be part of his ideal. Not necessarily death of a mentor, but I think he and Luthen will be reunited in a way, but in another sense, he is losing his connection with Kino Loy, who they've sort of served like strangely reciprocal roles in this. And he is going to be tempted to go home. So his return back path is going to center around his mother, but I'm not going to give that away yet in case you haven't watched it yet. But there is more to come with the involvement of Marva, and we will be making a return to Ferrix quite soon for the sort of final return and everything. And I would say that this hero's journey of Cassian's we're going on here in season 1 really is one that he's going to kind of go on multiple times, because you could sort of break this down for his entire life, counting Rogue One. I'm using it only as a counting of what's going on here in the events of Andor season 1. I'm sure in many ways we'll see him sort of repeat some of the same stuff in Andor season 2. But I think most things, and most people would consider that the monomyth can be something that you can sometimes repeat itself. I like to think of it as a little bit of expansion as well. But I'll leave that now for now. So, please like, subscribe, follow along. We're rapidly coming to the end. We're going to be concluding season 1 and 2 more episodes. And then we will be bringing up our commentary discussion of Andor season 2 as it premieres. As of this recording, that is next week. So, and it's going to be a 3-episode one. So it's going to be one heck of a complex deep dive. So, like I said, like, subscribe if you want to follow our movies over on the podcast channel, Not Funny Guys Presents Off the Reels. We just wrapped up our Rambo series. We're moving on to 3 films from 1992, starting with Newsies, which is a formidable film of my childhood. We also have the Wrestling with the Horror of It All podcast. And as I've been promising, there is a new one in the pipeline that should be coming out, I think, in about a week's time. So keep an eye out for that one as well. But like and subscribe for all those. Share along, follow, torture a friend by sending it to them and tell them, hey, you should listen to this. Maybe they'll like it. Maybe they'll hate you for it. But who cares? Just get the word out. But until then, long live the rebellion.
Say not funny guys again.
Not funny guys again.
No, can you say not funny guys?